We did everything he told us to. Those are the last words recorded on the phone they found on the back seat of a gray Honda Accord. A woman's voice, young, tired, no panic in it. She wasn't screaming, wasn't crying, just stating a fact like she was reporting to someone who wasn't even in the car. The recording cuts off mid-sentence. After that, 17 minutes of silence, the rustle of fabric, barely audible breathing. Then, nothing. The phone was lying face down on the back seat. The voice recorder was running.
Thanks for watching this video. I'm always curious who's watching and where you're from. Drop your city, the time, and what the weather's like where you are in the comments. If you're into this kind of story, make sure to subscribe. There are a lot more strange and unsettling cases coming. Now, let's get into the story.
Battery almost dead, 4% left when the crime scene techs pulled it from the vehicle. 2 people in the front seats, a guy and a girl, seatbelts fastened, hands neatly folded in their laps. Heads tilted back slightly, like people who dozed off on a long drive. But they weren't sleeping. The call came into State Police Dispatch at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday. Male voice, calm, no noticeable accent. He didn't identify himself. He rattled off GPS coordinates precise to 6 decimal places and said 3 sentences. There's a car on the shoulder, 2 bodies inside. Not fresh, but not old either. The dispatcher asked who was calling. The line went dead. The whole conversation lasted 11 seconds. 40 minutes later, a patrol car pulled over on a back road 60 miles from the nearest town. A dirt road mostly used by farmers and hunters. No cameras, no streetlights, no houses in sight. The Honda Accord was parked perfectly straight, like someone had followed all the rules. Hazards off, doors locked. Officer Ray Marquez, first to approach the vehicle, would later write in his report, "At first I thought they were asleep. The girl even looked like she was smiling." She wasn't smiling. It was rigor mortis in her facial muscles. Crime scene showed up around 9. The bodies were in early decomposition. Rigor had passed, soft tissue breakdown had started. You could smell it even from outside, despite the closed windows. Initial examination showed no external injuries, no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, no cuts, no signs of strangulation, no bruises. The forensic autopsy over the next 48 hours confirmed it. No signs of violent death. Toxicology came back clean. No alcohol, no drugs, no traces of any known poisons. Internal organs, no abnormalities. Both victims' hearts were healthy. No aneurysms, no clots, no congenital defects. 2 young, healthy people just stopped living at the same time, in the same car, roughly 72 hours before they were found. The medical examiner wrote in his report, "Cause of death undetermined." In 23 years of practice, he'd used that phrase 4 times. This made 5. Identification didn't take long. The girl, Megan Alice Thornton, 24. The guy, Jason Michael Reynolds, 26. A couple. Lived together in an Atlanta suburb. According to records, they'd been reported missing. When Detective Daniel Rocket opened the missing persons file, he saw the date. August 2015, almost 3 years ago. For 3 years, Megan and Jason had officially been missing. 3 years of searching, first active, then routine, then barely at all. 3 years their parents waited for news. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that for all 3 years, Megan's and Jason's bank cards had regular transactions. Gas stations, roadside diners, motels, small amounts. $15, 30, 42. Cards weren't blocked. Accounts weren't closed. Megan's parents had asked the bank several times to freeze their daughter's card. The bank refused. No grounds. Cards active, payments go through, no outstanding balance. "We can't freeze a living person's account," a manager said in 2016. All that time, someone had been using their cards. Someone had been living their lives. Detective Rocket requested complete statements for both accounts covering 3 years. He got an 89-page document, 847 transactions. First one. August 23, 2015, 4 days after the disappearance. Gas station in Tennessee, diesel $31. Last one, the day the bodies were found. Actually, 40 minutes before the bodies were found, but more on that later. Between the first and last 3 years of chaotic movement across 6 states. The route made no sense. Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, back to Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee again. Dozens of towns, hundreds of gas stations and motels. Someone had methodically created the illusion of life, spending money, leaving digital breadcrumbs, but never staying anywhere longer than 2 or 3 days. Rocket went back to the audio recording. We did everything he told us to. He, a man, someone was giving them instructions, someone Megan mentioned without a name, just he, like no other designation was needed, like both of them, her and Jason, knew who she meant. But in the car, there was only the phone. No notes, no phone numbers, no names in the contacts. The phone was nearly empty, factory reset. Only the voice recorder app remained, with a single recording. Who turned on the recorder? Why? Why wasn't the recording deleted? Rocket listened to the recording 14 times. On the 15th time, he heard what he'd missed before. 3 minutes before Megan's words, in the background, barely audible, a male voice. One word, indistinct, but the tone commanding. There was someone else in the car, or someone was talking to them on the phone, or the recording wasn't made in this car at all. More questions than answers. On the back seat, besides the phone, they found a few other items. An empty plastic water bottle, a protein bar wrapper, a receipt from a store faded, unreadable, and one human hair, long, dark. Didn't belong to Megan, her hair was light brown, or Jason. The hair was sent for analysis, DNA extracted without issues, profile entered into the database. No matches. On the 3rd day of the investigation, Rocket got results on the anonymous call. The number belonged to a prepaid phone bought for cash at an electronics chain store 18 months earlier. Store cameras only kept footage for 90 days, couldn't identify the buyer. The phone had been activated twice in its entire existence. First time the day of purchase, for 3 seconds, to test it. Second time to call the police. After the call, the phone never connected to the network again. The man who knew the exact coordinates of the car, who knew the bodies were not fresh but not old either, who spoke like he was reading a coroner's report, this man left no trace, except his voice. The voice was recorded on the incoming call, 11 seconds. Rocket sent the recording for linguistic analysis. The results came back a week later. Native English speaker, probably southeastern states but no pronounced regional accent, college educated, age estimated 35 to 50. Professional vocabulary. The phrase, not fresh but not old, isn't typical for a regular person. The expert added a note. The speaker likely has medical or forensic training, or has had frequent contact with dead bodies. Rocket read that line several times. A person who calls to report bodies, a person who knows how long they've been dead, a person who knows coordinates down to the meter. The killer? A witness? An accomplice eaten up by guilt? Or the same he that Megan and Jason did everything he told them? Rocket sat in his office until 2 in the morning. On the board in front of him, photos of Megan and Jason, alive from social media, dead from the morgue. A map with transaction points. A senseless web spread across 6 states. 2 people disappeared. For 3 years, someone pretended they were alive. Then they were found dead, without a single injury, without traces of poison, without any apparent cause. And the last thing Megan said was that they were following someone's instructions. Rocket opened a blank document, started typing questions. Where were Megan and Jason for the last 3 years? Who was using their cards? Why did the last transaction go through 40 minutes after their death? Who called? What were they doing on his instructions? And the main question he couldn't put into words but couldn't shake. If they were alive all these 3 years, why were they killed now? 3 years ago, they just didn't come back. No goodbye letter, no final phone call, no signs that August 19th, 2015 would be the last day Megan Thornton and Jason Reynolds existed as ordinary people. That morning, they loaded bags into the trunk of the gray Honda Accord. That afternoon, they stopped for gas 40 miles from home. That evening, they were supposed to arrive at Megan's parents' place in Savannah. They never showed. Megan was 21 when she met Jason. He worked as a tech at a local TV station. She was finishing college with a graphic design degree. Mutual friends, a party, exchanged numbers. A story like thousands of others. A year later, they moved in together. Small apartment in an Atlanta suburb, 2 cats, plans for the future. Megan freelanced, doing logos and layouts for small businesses. Jason got promoted. Evenings they watched TV shows. Weekends they visited their parents. Neighbors would later tell investigators, just a regular couple. Quiet, polite, no drama, no weird visitors. Washed their car every Saturday. Friends would say, happy. Jason said he was going to propose. Already bought the ring, hid it in his toolbox. Parents would say, this is impossible. They couldn't just vanish. Something happened. Police would say, no grounds for concern. Adults have the right to leave without telling anyone. August 19, 2015, Wednesday. At 7:14 a.m., Megan texted her mom, leaving in an hour, be there for dinner. Jason says hi. At 8:30, a camera in the apartment complex parking lot caught the Honda Accord pulling out. Jason driving, Megan in the passenger seat, both smiling. At 9:47, Jason's card was used at a Chevron station 40 miles southeast. Full tank, plus 2 coffees and a bag of chips. The station camera recorded both of them. Alive, calm, nothing unusual. After 9:47, silence. Megan's and Jason's phones went offline. The car vanished from cameras. Not a single witness, not a single recorded contact. 4 hours to Savannah. Straight shot, minimal turns. They should have arrived by 2 in the afternoon. By 6 p.m., Megan's mom started calling. Her daughter's phone didn't answer. Neither did Jason's. She called the apartment, no one picked up. Called friends, neighbors, Jason's coworkers. Nobody had seen them since morning. By 9 p.m., she called the police. The officer on duty took the report but explained, by law, a person isn't considered missing until 48 hours have passed. Adults can change plans. Maybe they decided to stop somewhere on the way. Maybe their phones died. Maybe they just wanted to be alone. Call back tomorrow if they don't turn up, the officer said. Megan's mom called the next day, and the day after, and the week after. 2 weeks later, they finally opened a case. But by then, the trail had gone cold. Or hadn't gone cold, just led somewhere nobody expected. The first odd thing turned up on day 3 of the search. The detective working the case requested bank statements. He expected to see the last transaction from August 19th, the Chevron station. After that, logically, activity should have stopped, but activity didn't stop. August 23rd, 4 days later, Jason's card was used at a gas station in Knoxville, Tennessee, 200 miles north of Savannah, opposite direction from where they were headed. August 25th, a motel outside Nashville. Megan's card, $47 for the night. August 27th, another gas station, Jason's card again, still Tennessee. The detective contacted the motel. The front desk clerk had changed 3 times in the past year, but records were still there. Room booked under Megan Thornton's name. One night, guest arrived around 9 p.m. and left at 6 a.m. Description matched. The detective exhaled. They're alive. Just ran off. It happens. But Megan's mom didn't buy it. She would have called, she kept saying. She definitely would have called. The case was reclassified, from missing persons to voluntarily cut contact. That's not a crime. That's a choice. The search was called off. 2 months of silence. Then, a postcard. October 23, 2015, a card arrived at Megan's parents' mailbox. No return address, postmarked Memphis, Tennessee. On the front, a photo of a bridge over the Mississippi at sunset. On the back, 3 words, handwritten, all good, M. The handwriting was similar to Megan's, but her mom said, it's not her. The letters are too neat. Megan always wrote sloppily, slanted her lines to the right. They refused to do a handwriting analysis. No grounds. The missing person is alive, making contact, says, everything's fine. What more do you need? The next 3 years turned into a strange ritual. Every few days, transactions showed up on Megan's and Jason's cards. Gas stations, motels, diners. The route changed chaotically. Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. Sometimes loops. They seemed to circle back to towns they'd already been to. Every 2 or 3 months, a postcard. Yes. Always with no return address. Always from different cities. Always a few words. All good, M. We need time, J. Don't look for us. We're fine. The handwriting on each postcard was slightly different, like someone was deliberately changing it. Megan's mom stopped calling the police. The police weren't doing anything anyway. Jason's dad started drinking. A year and a half later, Megan's parents filed for divorce. The disappearance of two young people who supposedly were alive was slowly destroying those left behind. In March 2017, Megan's mom did something she hadn't done before. She hired a private investigator. His name was Neil Prescott, former cop, 20 years in the missing persons unit. After retiring, he opened a small agency specializing in family cases, finding runaway kids, checking on suspicious partners, tracking down debtors. The Megan and Jason case was unlike anything he'd ever worked. Prescott started with the transactions. He requested surveillance footage from gas stations where the cards were used. Most recordings had already been deleted. Retention periods had expired, but a few were still around. And that's when Prescott saw what the detective had missed 3 years earlier. On footage from a Birmingham gas station dated April 2016, a woman used Megan's card. Light brown hair, average height, looked like the photo in the file. But it wasn't Megan. Prescott zoomed in. Quality was low, grainy, but enough. Different face shape, different nose, different chin. He checked 3 more recordings from different stations, different people each time, 1 woman and 2 men. None of them were Megan or Jason. Someone was systematically using their cards. Someone was maintaining the illusion of their existence. But Megan and Jason themselves hadn't appeared on any cameras since August 2015. Prescott prepared a report. He gave it to Megan's mom and simultaneously to the police. He recommended reclassifying the case back to missing persons under suspicious circumstances. He pointed out the camera discrepancies, the suspicious postcards, the senseless route. Police responded 2 months later, officially, dryly. The submitted materials do not contain sufficient grounds to reopen the investigation. Cards are active, postcards arrive, the people on camera possibly friends who borrowed the cards, or new partners, or whoever. That's not a crime, that's a private life. Prescott didn't give up. He spent another 6 months tracking transactions in real time. When a new one showed up, he drove to the location. Sometimes he got there a few hours after the payment, sometimes the next day. He never caught the people using the cards. They always disappeared before he arrived. But he gathered enough data to understand this wasn't random use of someone else's cards. This was a system. Cards were never used for large purchases, only small amounts, under $50. Cards were never used at the same place twice. Cards never crossed state lines in a single day. Someone knew the rules. Someone knew how to avoid attention. Prescott wrote a word in his notebook: network. In January 2018, Megan's mom stopped paying Prescott. She'd run out of money. The divorce ate through savings. Selling the house covered debts. She moved to her sister's place in Ohio, far from everything that reminded her of her daughter. Prescott closed the case, filed the folder in his archives, wrote in the final report, most likely the subjects of the search are deceased. Their identities are being used by third parties for unknown purposes. Recommendation: federal-level investigation. Nobody followed up on the recommendation. 3 months later, an anonymous caller provided exact coordinates to a gray Honda Accord. Detective Daniel Rocket spread 89 pages of bank statements across his desk, 847 transactions, 3 years of activity, 6 states, hundreds of gas stations, motels, diners. He started simple, marked each transaction on a map. After 4 hours of work, he stared at the result and couldn't make sense of it. The route had no logic. People who travel move from point A to point B. People hiding go in one direction away from danger. People living on the road follow work, weather, opportunities. This route didn't fit any category. Chaotic loops through southeastern states. Returns to towns they'd already visited. Sudden 200-mile jumps, then 3 days in one place. Then another loop. Rocket called in an analyst. The guy studied the pattern for 2 days. His conclusion? This isn't a human's route. It's a system's route. Someone distributed transactions to look natural while never creating a predictable trajectory. Rocket requested surveillance footage. Over 3 years, most recordings had been deleted. Standard retention period 30 to 90 days. But at the federal level, archives from some major gas station chains still existed. 17 recordings were recovered. Rocket watched them in order. 1st September 2015, Chattanooga gas station. Megan's card. On screen, a woman in a baseball cap and sunglasses. Light brown hair, average height, face barely visible. 2nd October 2015, Birmingham gas station, Jason's card. On screen, a man around 30, dark hair, lean build, confident movements, glances at the camera for a split second and immediately looks away. 3rd November 2015, a different woman, darker, slightly taller, Megan's card. 4th, same November, a third man, Jason's card. Rocket paused the footage. Counted. In the first 3 months after the disappearance, at least 4 different people used the cards. None of them looked like Megan or Jason. He continued watching. By the end of the 17th recording, he'd counted at least 7 different people. 3 women and 4 men, all different ages, appearances, builds. But they had something in common. They all knew where the cameras were. They all ducked their heads, put on glasses, turned their backs at just the right moment. They all paid quickly, didn't linger, didn't make conversation. These weren't random scammers who found someone's cards. This was a coordinated operation. Rocket contacted the identity theft unit. The agent who picked up listened silently, then said, "You're not the first one to find this." Turns out, similar patterns had been flagged before. Cards belonging to people listed as missing kept being used for years. Small amounts, chaotic routes, multiple users. The FBI had a name for it: Ghost Identity Network. Here's how it worked. Someone collected data on people who disappeared willingly or not. Documents, cards, sometimes even vehicles. These identities were then distributed among network participants. Each participant used someone else's identity for a limited time, a few months, then passed it to another. Why? Various reasons. Some were hiding from the law, some from debts, some from exes or families. Some just wanted to vanish and start over. The network gave them that option, for a fee. But Rocket was interested in a different question. Where did the network get its identities? Where were the real Megan and Jason while strangers used their cards? The FBI agent couldn't answer. "We tracked the usage," he said. "But the identity sources, that's another level. We haven't gotten there yet." Rocket went back to the transactions. He was looking for anomalies, something that broke the pattern. On page 47, he found one. March 14th, 2017, Megan's card. A motel in an Atlanta suburb. $72, the largest amount ever. And most importantly, the motel address was 20 miles from the apartment where Megan and Jason lived before they vanished. In 3 years of transactions, not one had gone through closer than 100 miles from Atlanta. Someone had carefully avoided the area. And suddenly, a motel practically downtown. Rocket called the motel. The front desk had turned over 3 times in the past year, but records remained. Room booked under Megan Thornton's name. One night, guest arrived around 9 p.m., left at 6 a.m. Cameras not working. Hadn't worked for 3 years, but the front desk clerk remembered something. Actually, a co-worker who worked that night told him. She didn't come alone. There was a man with her. They barely talked. He waited in the car while she checked in. Description of the man? Dark hair, average height, maybe 40 to 45. Car? Dark sedan. Nobody remembered the plates. Rocket wrote in his notebook, March 2017, she was alive, not alone. Under control? He started looking for other anomalies. On page 63, he found a second one. January 8th, 2018, 3 months before the bodies were found. Jason's card. A pharmacy in a small town on the Georgia-Alabama border. Purchase: bandages, antiseptic, painkillers. Total $34. Someone was hurt? Rocket requested footage from the pharmacy. Retention period had expired, no recordings left. But he found something else. Same day, same town, an ambulance call. Anonymous caller. Male voice reported someone unconscious in a grocery store parking lot. When the ambulance arrived, nobody there. No victim, no caller. Coincidence? Rocket didn't believe in coincidences. He found the third anomaly on the last page. Transaction number 847, the last one on the list. Day, the bodies were found. Jason's card. Gas station in Columbus, Georgia. Time 6:07 a.m. Rocket checked the time of the anonymous police call, 6:47 a.m., 40-minute difference. But here's the thing, distance. From the Columbus gas station to where they found the car, 214 miles, 3 hours minimum. The transaction went through 40 minutes after Megan and Jason died, but the person who made it was 200 miles from the bodies. This meant one thing. At the moment the couple died, someone else was using their card on the other side of the state. Someone knew they were dead, someone knew the exact time, and someone still went to a gas station and paid for gas with a dead man's card. Why? Rocket requested footage from the Columbus gas station. The footage survived. He got it 12 hours later, 6:07 a.m. A dark pickup pulls up to a pump. A man gets out. Average height, stocky build, baseball cap, dark glasses despite the early hour. He slides the card into the terminal, fills the tank, gets back in and drives off. Can't see his face. Plates on the pickup unreadable, covered in mud, possibly on purpose. But Rocket noticed something. The man didn't look at the terminal when entering the PIN. He looked at his watch. 3 times in 40 seconds while pumping, he was waiting for a specific time. He was syncing the transaction with something. With what? Rocket looked at the timeline again. 6:07 transaction in Columbus, 6:47 anonymous call to police with body coordinates, 40 minutes, exactly 40 minutes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. Rocket sat at his monitor until dawn. Someone had managed Megan and Jason's identities for 3 years, distributed their cards among network members, maintained the illusion of life, and then killed them. Or let them die, and at the moment of death sent a final signal. Transaction 200 miles away, 40 minutes before the call. Signal to whom? Why? Rocket wrote in his notebook. Final transaction, not a mistake, a marker. Someone was marking time of death. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew the answer was on that audio recording, in the voice that told Megan and Jason what to do. Rocket listened to the recorder file 43 times, 47 minutes of audio, most of it background noise. Engine hum, rustling clothes, occasionally the sound of cars passing outside. Megan and Jason barely spoke, now and then short phrases, fragments of words. How much longer? Don't know. I'm tired. Silence. And then the last 6 minutes, the voice appeared out of nowhere. Not from the phone speaker, the sound was too clean, no speakerphone distortion. Not from inside the car, different acoustics, more muffled, like an enclosed space. Rocket showed the recording to an audio expert. The guy worked on it for 3 days. Conclusion: the voice was recorded in the same space as Megan's and Jason's voices, distance from source to microphone about 6 to 10 feet. The man was in the car, in the back seat. But during the body examination, no backseat passenger was present, meaning he got out before they died, or after. The audio expert isolated the fragments with the male voice. Enhanced, cleaned up noise, slowed down. The voice was calm, level. No emotion, no tension. The person speaking was in complete control of the situation. First, clear phrase, 4 minutes before the end of the recording. Pull the car over here. Pause, sound of braking, gravel crunching under wheels. Turn off the engine. Click, engine died. Good. Silence, 20 seconds. Then, Megan's voice, quiet, almost a whisper. What now? Male voice, just as calm. Now you'll fasten your seatbelts. Click, another click, seatbelts. Put your hands on your knees, fabric rustling. Close your eyes. Silence. The next 2 minutes, near total silence, just breathing, occasionally barely audible movement. Then Megan's voice, louder than before, like she wasn't speaking to the man but to herself, or to someone who would listen later. We did everything he told us to. She didn't finish. The recording cuts off mid-sentence. After that, 17 minutes of silence gradually fading to complete absence of sound, even breathing. Rocket sent the recording for linguistic analysis. Results came back a week later. The man Native American English speaker, southeastern states, but no pronounced regional accent, college educated, age 35 to 50, speech characteristics, short, precise commands, no unnecessary words, pauses between phrases even, measured. Someone used to giving orders and expecting them to be followed. The expert added a comment. The speech pattern is typical of individuals with professional experience in fields requiring control over others, military, medical, law enforcement, or individuals with pronounced sociopathic traits capable of long-term manipulation. Rocket compared the voice to the recording of the anonymous police call. 11 seconds of dispatch audio versus 4 minutes from the car. Different quality, different recording conditions. But the audio expert was 87% confident. Same person. The man who gave Megan and Jason their final instructions was the same man who called police a few hours later to report the coordinates. He was with them in the car. He told them to buckle up, put their hands on their knees, close their eyes. He waited for them to die, then got out of the car, then called so they'd be found. Why? Rocket searched for a motive. If this was murder, where's the weapon? Toxicology was clean, no signs of violence. 2 healthy young people just stopped living. If this was suicide, why the instructions? Why a third person? Why the call to police? If this was a cult, where were the other members? Where were the signs of organization? Where was the symbolism? Rocket checked databases on cults and destructive groups. Nothing similar. No mention of rituals involving cars, seatbelts, closed eyes. He checked serial killer databases. Nothing similar. No cases where victims were found in cars, belted in, with no signs of violence. He checked databases on death games, internet phenomena like the Blue Whale Challenge, where manipulators pushed victims to suicide. Some elements matched: prolonged control, instructions, isolation from loved ones. But death games targeted teenagers, not adult couples. And they didn't last 3 years. In the second week of the investigation, Rocket got new information. The phone with the recording was partially recovered. Factory reset didn't destroy all data, just made it inaccessible to regular users. Specialists extracted fragments of deleted files, most damaged, unreadable. But one file recovered almost completely. A text document, untitled, created 14 months earlier, inside a list, 23 items, each a short phrase. Do not call relatives. Do not use your own cards. Do not return to Georgia. Do not take photographs. Do not talk to strangers. Follow all instructions. Do not ask questions. The list continued. Rules, restrictions, prohibitions. The last item. When the time comes, you will know. Rocket read the list over and over. These weren't rules for prisoners. Prisoners are kept locked up, physically controlled. Megan and Jason moved through 6 states. They went into stores, gas stations, motels. They could have approached any passerby, called the police, asked for help. But they didn't. For 3 years, they followed instructions. For 3 years, they obeyed the voice. For 3 years, they lived by rules someone else had written for them. Why? Rocket called the psychiatrist who consulted for the department on complex cases. He described the situation. A couple, 3 years of isolation, a list of rules, voluntary submission to the point of death. The psychiatrist listened in silence, then said, "This is called coercive control, psychological subjugation without physical violence. The manipulator creates a system where the victim believes they can't leave. Fear, dependence, gradual destruction of personal will. After a few months, the victim follows any instructions voluntarily. They think it's their own choice." "But 3 years?" Rocket asked. 3 years is a lot, the psychiatrist agreed. "But not impossible. Cults hold people for decades, abusive partners for life. If the manipulator is experienced enough, if he's isolated the victims from all connections, if he's given them a new value system, 3 years is entirely realistic." "But why did they have to die?" Pause. "That I can't explain. Death is the end of control. Manipulators don't kill their victims, they use them." Rocket went back to the audio recording. He listened not to the words, to the tones. Megan's voice in the final minutes, Jason's voice when he occasionally responded. They weren't scared, they weren't resisting, they weren't trying to run. They were calm, almost at peace, like people who knew what was about to happen and accepted it. In the 3rd week of the investigation, Rocket got results on the hair from the back seat. DNA belonged to a male, Caucasian, age impossible to determine. No matches in the federal database. But the expert noted something unusual. The hair wasn't pulled or broken. It fell out naturally. And it had traces of a specific chemical compound, medicated shampoo, used for certain scalp conditions, prescription only. Rocket requested a list of pharmacies within 100 miles that dispensed this shampoo. Short list, rare prescription, 17 sales in the last 2 years, 17 names. Rocket started checking each one. 4th week, dead end. All 17 buyers had alibis or didn't fit the description. Elderly, women, teenagers with skin problems. Nobody matched the profile. Rocket sat in his office staring at the board with the photos. Megan and Jason looked back at him from the printouts, alive, smiling, happy, dead calm, almost serene. For 3 years, someone kept them under control. For 3 years, someone gave them instructions. For 3 years, they obeyed. And then the voice told them to close their eyes, and they died. How? Why? Who is this person? Rocket didn't know, but he knew the answer existed. Somewhere in these recordings, in these transactions, in these fragments of data, the answer was hidden. He just couldn't see it yet. In the 6th week of the investigation, the audio expert called Rocket at 2 in the morning. I found something else on the recording. You need to hear this. Rocket got to the lab in 40 minutes. The expert pointed at the screen. Soundwave 47 minutes of audio stretched into a thin line with peaks and dips. I was analyzing the background noise, looking for any sounds that could indicate where the recording was made, and I found this. He zoomed in on a section. 23rd minute, a barely distinguishable spike in the wave. Listen. He hit play. At first, nothing. Engine noise, rustling. Then a barely audible sound, mechanical, rhythmic, click, pause, click, pause, click. What is that? Rocket asked. A metronome, electronic metronome, 60 beats per minute, exactly 1 beat per second. Rocket didn't understand. Why would there be a metronome in a car? The expert shook his head. Not in the car. The sound's coming from the same source as the male voice. The metronome was near him, or in his hands. Rocket went back to the recording. He listened to the last 6 minutes again. Now, knowing about the metronome, he heard it clearly, a quiet, steady rhythm behind the voice. Pull the car over here. Click, click, click. Turn off the engine. Click, click. Fasten your seatbelts. Click, 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 click. The voice followed the rhythm, each command after a specific number of beats, pauses between phrases even, measured. Rocket called the consulting psychiatrist. A metronome, he said. Why would a manipulator use a metronome? Pause on the other end. Hypnosis, the psychiatrist answered, or something like it. Rhythmic sounds are used to induce trance states, 60 beats per minute resting heart rate. The brain syncs with the rhythm. Consciousness becomes more malleable. You're saying he hypnotized them? I'm saying he used a suggestion technique. 3 years of isolation, constant control, severed ties to their past. That's the preparation. The metronome is the tool. If someone's under psychological pressure long enough, their consciousness becomes flexible. Rocket was silent. They weren't hypnotized in the classic sense, the psychiatrist continued. They were reprogrammed. Their will was replaced by his will. When he said, close your eyes, they closed them. When he said, stop breathing, people can't stop breathing on command. No, but they can enter a state of such deep relaxation that the heart slows to a critical level. It's rare. It takes years of preparation or absolute submission, but it's possible. Rocket pulled up the medical reports. Cause of death undetermined. But in the pathologist's report was a detail he'd missed before. Both victims' hearts stopped almost simultaneously. Difference, no more than 2 or 3 minutes. Both showed signs of bradycardia, abnormally low heart rate before death. They weren't poisoned. They weren't killed. Their hearts just slowed down and stopped. In the 7th week, Rocket got results from the postcard analysis. Forensics examined all 8 postcards received by the parents over 3 years. The handwriting on each was different, but testing established these weren't natural variations. This was deliberate imitation. Someone was changing the handwriting on purpose. Letter slant, pressure, size, everything varied from card to card. But on one postcard, the one that arrived in March 2017, they found a partial fingerprint. Not in the database, no matches. However, the expert noted, the print belonged to a male, age 40 to 60. The skin showed signs of chemical exposure, either work with reagents or certain medications. Rocket remembered the shampoo. Medicated, prescription only, skin condition. He was looking for a man with skin problems. Male, 40 to 60. College educated, commanding voice. Experience controlling people. Military, doctor, psychologist, former cop. In the 8th week, the investigation started to stall. No new evidence, no witnesses. The person who had controlled Megan and Jason's lives for 3 years left no traces. Rocket built a profile. Male, 40-55, college-educated, probably medical or psychological background. Experience working with people in vulnerable states. Possible criminal history, but unrecorded. Knowledge of manipulation and suggestion techniques. Connection to the ghost identity network, possibly an organizer or key participant. The profile went out to all departments in 6 states. Response: silence. The case was suspended in October 2018. Official wording: investigation continues, but active investigative activities suspended due to lack of new data. Rocket filed the folder in archives. The photos of Megan and Jason he left on the board in the corner where unsolved cases usually hung. Cause of death: undetermined. Suspect: unidentified. Motive: unknown. The only thing left from the investigation: the audio recording, 47 minutes. The final hours of 2 people who spent 3 years following someone's instructions. We did everything he told us to. 4 years passed. In March 2022, the monitoring system flagged phone number activation, that same number. The prepaid phone used for the anonymous police call in 2018. Activation lasted 3 seconds. No call completed, the connection dropped before anyone answered. But the signal was captured. Location: an abandoned farm 50 miles from where Megan and Jason's bodies were found. Rocket got the alert 2 days later. He wasn't working the case anymore, transferred to another department the year before, but the system automatically sent him the notification: activity on the old number. He stared at the report for 15 minutes. 3 seconds of activation, 50 miles from the crime scene. 4 years of silence, and suddenly a signal. Coincidence? Someone found the old phone and tried to turn it on? Or the same person, the same voice? Rocket contacted the local office, asked them to check the location. The farm had been abandoned for 12 years. Owner died, heirs never came forward. House half collapsed, fields overgrown. Patrol swept the grounds. No signs of recent presence, no phones, no evidence. Except on the barn wall, fresh writing, white paint on weathered wood, 3 words: time has come. Rocket requested analysis of the inscription: paint standard construction grade, sold everywhere, applied with a brush, handwriting neat, confident. No fingerprints. The inscription was made no earlier than a week before discovery, and no later than a day. Someone drove to an abandoned farm, activated the phone for 3 seconds, wrote 3 words on the wall, and vanished. Rocket sat in his car on the roadside, looking at the farm from a distance. 4 years ago, he couldn't find the person who killed Megan and Jason. He didn't understand how they died. He didn't understand why. Now that person was back, or had never left. Time has come. Time for what? Rocket didn't know, but he knew one thing. Somewhere in these 6 states there were other people. People receiving instructions, people following rules, people waiting for the voice to tell them to close their eyes. And someday, someone would call the police again and give them coordinates. The hair from the Honda Accord back seat was still in the database. No matches in 4 years. The final transaction, the Columbus gas station, 40 minutes before the police call, remained the only trace of someone who was alive at the moment the couple died. The audio recording, 47 minutes, sits in archives as evidence in an unsolved case. Sometimes, late at night, Rocket opens the file and listens to the last 6 minutes. The voice saying, "Close your eyes." The metronome 60 beats per minute. And silence. The case of Megan Thornton and Jason Reynolds officially remains open. But in the folder, at the very end, there's a handwritten note from Rocket. 3 lines, written the night he learned about the inscription on the farm. He's not finished. This wasn't a one-time thing. They were the first to practice. There are others out there, and he's waiting.